My name is James Griffin. I was a Master Gunnery Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I enlisted in 1976 and retired in 1996. The reason why I joined the Marine Corps, I looked at these young men and felt like they was the most elite fighting force in the world, which I think they are. I came off the farm of a North Carolina mountain farm. Didn't have a lot of choices as far as work, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to continue education, to travel, and to serve our great nation. My mother was a great mom, had a great grandmother, certainly enthusiastic about my opportunities in life, and certainly encouraged me to do anything I wanted to try to do. A lot of those things came out of obviously a dysfunctional family, just like many young people have today. My stepfather was an abusive guy later on in my life. I remember one situation where I was probably 8 or 9 years old, that I came in a house and he had my mother in a headlock with a pistol at the top of her head, but the pistol misfired. Not only did he abuse my mother, but he abused me. We used to have his buddies over when my mother would work the graveyard shift, and there we would have a contest on how long I could hold up Coke bottles, and they would make bets right there in the living room. And I remember as a child praying that this guy would die every night. You know, and you don't want to be to that point as a child that you're praying for somebody else to die, but I did. Later on as an adult, my sister passed away unexpectedly, but during that service, the abusive stepfather, I remember him showing up to view the body, and I was thinking to myself, as an adult male, what am I going to do with this guy? But when they brought him in, he had had a stroke, he was in a wheelchair, and so I guess what I'm saying is all those prayers that young people send up, they were answered. They wasn't answered what I thought they would be, but God had taken care of this and destroyed this guy so much more than what I could have ever done. So that taught me a big lesson. That, number one, be careful what you pray for, that's for sure. Number two, to be compassionate and just have faith that the good Lord knows the pathway, and whatever's going to happen in your life, it's probably a situation that you can always count on the good Lord to handle. When my mother remarried the third time, she married a great guy. His name was Owen. And at that time, of course, I was rebellious and had gotten into some trouble. But Owen came in and taught me that all men are not what I had seen as fathers. This guy was very compassionate. He was very patient. I can remember him just taking the time to talk to me, but he made everyone that he met feel like they was the most important. And not only did he make them feel that way, I'm sure he felt that way at the moment every time he talked to somebody. Little things that he did changed my life, such as he taught me how to hunt and how to use a weapon. He played ball. It was the first time I'd ever had an adult male actually go out in the yard and just throw a baseball or throw a softball and teach me how to throw a fast-pitched softball or those things. He gave you freedom to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. He was a great guy, and that really changed my opinion about fatherhood. It changed my opinion about some adult males on how they treated people. I ended up quitting high school during my senior year, which looking back now, of course, that is so crazy. But at the time, I thought it was a smart move. Parris Island, South Carolina is where, of course, we have our male recruit depot for anyone that lives east of the Mississippi. When I got to Parris Island, I certainly had religious differences. I was a Southern Baptist, and these three drill instructors were demons from hell, so I knew that this was going to be a tough situation. But for the next 13 weeks, I hung in there. I knew that I'd be learning great skills, and these Marines called drill instructors were there to actually take care of me and make me that basic Marine. While I was there, of course, Vietnam had just ended the previous year, and so all my drill instructors and senior trainers were all these hardened Vietnam vets. I can recall one instance, we were just issued the M16 rifle had just come out, and I was cleaning my rifle one evening. The senior drill instructor had us in a school circle there on the deck of the squad bay, and I was rolling out my front sight post to clean. At that moment, he was describing to us, if you lose the little spring in that front sight post, he would kill you. At that moment, my spring popped out and went probably at least 10 to 15 feet away, which I could never find. So I had to raise my hand and request permission to speak to the senior drill instructor, of course. And he brought me up. I'll never forget, he grabs me by my collar, and with his hand, he starts telling me, "Oh, you stupid little shit," and starts slapping me. "Did I not just tell you not to?" And as he kept getting harder and harder. It was a great lesson though, in attention to detail, making sure you listen to the instructions before you act, just like any good Marine should. Been out of the country for the first time for me as a young man was exciting. At the same time, the unknown. Again, coming from a small town, rural town in North Carolina, the weapon systems which I got to work with, these huge battleships, aircraft carriers, I was in total awe. And of course, the opportunities I had too while I was on deployment. While I was in the Marine Corps, I traveled extensively around the world, not only going across the United States 3 or 4 times, but also other countries, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Sicily, Okinawa, Japan, deployments in the Korea Peninsula area, the Philippines. So I was able to travel quite a bit, and of course got to see a lot of different things, good and bad. I think some of the most unusual jobs I had in November of 1979, when the Iranian hostages was taken in Iran, overran our embassy there. Shortly afterwards, I was assigned to a special unit in the high desert to train. In that training, which I'm sure was top secret at the time, we had the capability to launch a nuclear warhead through a 155 house or battery. My job was not only to provide security for that, but I also carried the launch codes for deployment. One of the jobs that I was assigned that I never had to do, my last job was, in case we were ever overran in a position, I had to blow the nuclear warhead. During April of 1980, there was a failed mission, Operation Eagle Claw, through the Carter administration. I wasn't part of that, but we were the backup for that. But that never occurred with Ronald Reagan being elected. The recording of the unit itself, whether it's still established, I really don't know. I know I've looked before and I can't find that unit any longer. So I don't know if it was actually assimilated into other units in the Marine Corps. You know, as time goes on, the Marines now have Special Op Command, and so it may have been disbanded and integrated throughout. Some of my most unique memories while I was serving in the Marine Corps, I had so many, but I remember on one operation that we had coming into the Mediterranean. We were on our Amtrak, and as we came off the ship, all of a sudden it filled with smoke. Now at first I wasn't too worried until the crew started screaming, and then we started going under. Fortunately, I'll have to give credit to our Navy compadres there, our comrades. They were able to get into the water, and they were there for rescue as we come bobbing up. But literally it scared, that was one of the scariest moments I think I had. I also hated night operations. We had many night operations where they would take us in by helicopter and we'd have to do drops. But I never really enjoyed working or riding in one of those helicopters. As long as I was on the ground with the combat troops, which that's about 99% of my time served in the Marine Corps, was with ground forces, I felt safe with these guys. They can be your worst enemy or your best friend. You know, it's always a saying, politicians, well, it's your job to keep the peace. You don't do your job though, we'll do ours. Not all the moments were great memories, of course, when you're working with combat troops. There was times I seen death, young men giving their lives for their country, and sometimes, of course, we had to take lives to protect innocent people. I can certainly remember a special operation that occurred early in my career where we did have to take out targets, but I don't have a lot to say about that, just to know that human beings can sometimes be very cruel to each other, but there has to be people that sometimes can step up and do those things that nobody else was willing to do to protect our freedom here. I think one of the best opportunities I also had while I was in the Marine Corps, had a chance to shoot in the Marine Corps matches, the Far East matches, while I was stationed in Japan, Okinawa. There, I missed my medal by 1 point. However, that changed my whole life. Up until that point, I had never even thought about college or going to night classes. So there was a young Mustang officer, which is former enlisted, is what that means, encouraged me to start going to night school just to help get promoted. And so that really launched my education, because once I started going, I just kept going. And therefore ended up with an associate's and then a bachelor's and 2 masters, by the time my career had ended in the Marine Corps. But if it hadn't been for that one round, that 1 point that I missed my medal, none of this would have ever happened. I'm sure I would have stayed in the Marine Corps, but I have absolutely no idea what I'd be doing now, maybe in jail. Shortly right after my retirement in 1996, I received a message from another retired Marine in the ROTC program, wanting to know if I'd be interested in teaching ROTC. At the first time I turned him down. I wasn't interested. I thought I would be living on the East Coast and staying there, working in the university system. However, shortly after that offer, my father-in-law became ill with Alzheimer's disease. And little did I know at the moment, this was also at the same high school I had quit so many years before, back in '75. So I accepted that position. So now I was one of the few people that eventually became an assistant principal without a high school diploma, or graduating at least from a traditional high school. My first 2 years, I was selected as the assistant principal of the year for the state. Shortly after that, I was assigned to my first high school, and I've been working with young people in secondary school ever since. I continue to stay in the education today because not for the love of just education, but for the love of kids. I think my stepfather, Owen, that taught me so many things about compassion and patience and acceptance of people, and then with my own childhood background, going through abusive situations or dysfunctional families, it gave me a passion to help serve the youth wherever I could. That said, I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the world, but I do think I can connect with kids and help them reach their own goals. And one of our biggest missing components, I think, in our education system today is compassion for kids and building relationship with our young people. It's not always who has the highest GPA that's going to be successful. I think those that are going to be successful are those young people that can learn the same things that I learned, and that's compassion, building relationships, and grit. Who can say it and do it instead of just talking about it? You can be the most intelligent person, but if you're not going to do anything with it, you're still lost. I think it was Will Rogers once said, you could be on the right track, but if you're not moving, you still get hit by the train. And so my mission in life, and I think it is a called mission by the good Lord, is that keep kids on the right track, but keep them moving. If you're moving, even if it's a slow movement, at least you're moving and go in the right direction. And that's the reason why I stay with it today. Love my job, love working with the youth. I hate the bureaucracy of the whole system, but again, my main passion is for kids.